Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Arundhati Ramnan and here are the top headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Sensex and Nifty and marginally in the red after a range-bound session. Mid-caps outperformed the blue chips with the index ending with gains of over 100 points. More than 10,000 Palestinians and 1,400 Israelis are dead 1 month since the Hamas attack and the war in Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu says Israel will have overall security responsibility for Gaza after the war for an indefinite period. United Nations chief renews demand for a ceasefire and says a tragedy of colossal proportions is unfolding in Gaza. Supreme Court orders Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh to stop crop burning immediately as air quality remains hazardous across large parts of northern India, says chief secretaries of the states will be held accountable and directs them to hold a meeting tomorrow. Court also questions the efficacy of Delhi's odd-even scheme and asks the state to stop open burning of solid waste. Indigo CEO Peter Elbers expects 15 to 19% growth in the airline's capacity in FY24, says measures are being taken to mitigate the capacity gap due to Pratt & Whitney's engine recall. Some of the steps include lease extensions and damp leasing of planes. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive.
3, 2, and 1! Woo!
Mama Earth parent Honasa sees a tepid start to its Dalal Street journey. Stock lists at less than a 2% premium on the NSE. Mama Earth employees and qualified institutional buyers had led the bidding process. Retail investors were largely cautious. Once America's most valuable startup at $47 billion, WeWork files for bankruptcy protection, is now worth less than $50 million. The company's business in US and Canada will get impacted. WeWork India says they operate independently of WeWork Global and add that their operations will not be affected. Electoral season kicks off. 20 out of 90 Chhattisgarh Assembly constituencies go to polls in Phase 1. Several of the seats are in Naxal-affected Bastar. Mizoram also votes in a single phase. The state is witnessing a multi-cornered fight. Former U.S. President Donald Trump spars with a judge as he testifies at a New York court in a $250 million civil fraud case, calls the case a disgrace and taunts the AG as a political hack. The judge had already ruled in September that the Trump organization committed fraud in building a real estate empire. Those were the headlines that we're tracking for you this evening, but straight to the day's market action. Sensex and Nifty ended with minor cuts in what was a range-bound session. Mid-caps and banks managed to outperform the major indices. The Nifty Bank Index gained nearly 120 points and the mid-cap index gained over 100 points. On to earnings corner, where Saudi Aramco's net profit declined 23% to $32 billion in the quarter ending September. The company attributed the fall to lower oil prices and volumes sold. The drop in profitability this year has been in line with industry trends. Shares of UBS surged in trade after the Swiss banking giant's underlying profit beat street expectations. However, its quarterly net loss widened far more than anticipated, owing to the $2 billion spent to integrate the recently acquired Credit Suisse. Total group revenues for the quarter stood at a little less than $12 billion, growing 23% sequentially. Japanese video game company Nintendo reported strong sales in the September quarter. The releases of its flagship game Zelda and the Super Mario movie earlier this year boosted sales. Revenue slipped 4% while profit declined 19%, but both parameters still beat market expectations. The company also hiked the forecast for its full-year profit to $2.8 billion. It was a muted D-Street debut for Mama Earth's parent Honasa Consumer, with its shares listing only 2% higher than the offer price. The stock closed with gains of 4%. Remember, the initial public offering was subscribed over 7.6 times, led by strong interest from institutional investors. Mangala Malu is here with more details. Mangala?
Now that it is listed, the question is, what does one do and what are the parameters that one looks at? 4 things. The first one, of course, is the top line growth. The company has been growing nearly 2.5, 3 times the industry, 80% CAGR over the last 3 years. Does it continue to grow at that pace? The management has guided for at least 2 times the growth of the industry over the next 5 to 7 years. So that is something that the street will closely monitor. The second thing that you watch out for is the operational performance and leveraging the ad spends. You know, for a company that does around 1,500 crores of sales, they spend around 35 to 40% of their sales as advertisements, and that they've done for the last few years as well. Now, as the business scales, ads as a proportion of sales should come down, and that would have a positive impact on the margins. So that is the second thing that everyone will be watching out for. As of the first quarter, their margins were close to 6.3%. The third thing is the third leg of growth that the company will have, which will be beyond Mamaearth and beyond online. So online as a proportion of sales has been coming down largely because the company has been expanding their offline presence. Now they're at around 120,000 stores, and the overall universe is almost 8 million stores. So can they go past and scale up in the offline vertical, where a lot of competition is awaiting their entry as well, is the third thing I'll be watching out for. And finally, the fourth thing, the valuations. It was offered at around 4.5 to 5 times the 2-year forward sales, 8.5 times 1-year forward sales, and we have a price to earnings of nearly 90 times. If the company surprises on any of the top 3 parameters over the next few quarters, these valuations will look a little more favorable than at what the IPO was priced. In fact, we spoke to the management and they said that the second quarter results will be reported in just the next few weeks. So that will be the first test of what the company does post their IPO, and that's something we'll be eyeing.
Even in FY23, there is an exceptional item because of which you're seeing the loss. Otherwise, we were EBITDA positive, although it was only 1.5%. At this point of time, we are not looking at divesting anything, but in future, we don't know how we look at things. And we are in this for decades. We want to build this company and brands for decades. We are at least not seeing any headwinds as we speak, and we are growing very strongly, and we see a lot of opportunity.
The big global story, co-working space provider WeWork has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in New Jersey federal court on Monday. Once valued at $47 billion, the SoftBank-backed firm has reported liabilities ranging from $10 to $50 billion. As per the bankruptcy filing, WeWork's operations in US and Canada are set to be impacted. The company has said that it had entered into agreements with majority of its secured note holders and that it intended to trim non-operational leases. Now, SoftBank, which owns about 60% of WeWork, has admitted that the company will not be able to survive unless it renegotiates its pricey leases. CEO David Tolley said in a statement, and I quote, "I am deeply grateful for the support of our financial stakeholders as we work together to strengthen our capital structure and expedite this process through the restructuring support agreement. We remain committed to investing in our products, services, and world-class team of employees to support our community." Meanwhile, WeWork India has assured that their operations will remain unaffected. A statement said that WeWork India operates independently of the global unit and is backed by majority stakeholder Embassy Group, and that they will continue to operate and serve their partners as usual. Now, the consumer goods sector grew 9% in the July to September quarter. Data from Nielsen India shows that volume growth for the quarter was at an 8-quarter high. Sales in rural markets recovered while volumes in urban areas rose 10.2%. Over 10,000 people have been killed since the start of the Israel-Hamas war a month back. At least 23 people have been killed in an overnight attack over cities in southern Gaza. Several casualties were reported in Khan Yunis after Israeli forces bombed the area. The Israeli army has confirmed that they have taken control of Hamas's stronghold in northern Gaza. In a statement, the Israeli Defense Force said that its jets struck down a cell with approximately 10 Hamas terrorists. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that the country will have an overall security responsibility over the Gaza after the war ends. In an interview with ABC News, Netanyahu indicated that Israel plans to control the territory indefinitely. He added that there will be no general ceasefire in Gaza, but was signaled at tactical pauses to allow people. UN Secretary General warned that Gaza was becoming a graveyard for children.
Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children. Hundreds of girls and boys are reportedly being killed or injured every day. More journalists have reportedly been killed over a 4-week period than in any conflict in at least 3 decades. More United Nations aid workers have been killed than in any comparable period in the history of our organization.
Electoral season has officially kicked off. 20 out of 90 Chhattisgarh Assembly constituencies have gone to polls in Phase 1. However, several of the seats are in Naxal-affected Bastar. As of 3 p.m., voter turnout in the state has stood at 59.19%. My colleague Arunima reports from a polling station in Dantewada district. Arunima?
First phase of voting in Chhattisgarh has begun with 20 seats going to vote, 8 in Rajnandgaon area, 12 in Bastar. The security that you see behind me in the school of Arbe, which has become the polling center for 705 voters from nearby areas, including the Naxal-affected village of Nilavaya. This is really showing you what kind of security bandobast is required. So in these 12 seats of Bastar, Rajnandgaon is of a lot of significance. Rajnandgaon is the seat of former Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, Raman Singh. In the last elections, out of these 20 seats, the first round of elections saw 17 go to Congress, and then subsequent by-elections, including by-election in Dantewada, ensured that Congress's total tally became 19 out of 20. The only seat which went to BJP was Dr. Raman Singh's seat of Rajnandgaon. This time around, Congress is hoping to repeat the performance, but BJP hopes that they will be able to make a mark in these 20 seats, especially the seats of Bastar.
That's the latest on the polling front. But on that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up, the Supreme Court fumes as the national capital gasps for clean air, orders 4 northern states to stop crop stubble burning with immediate effect. But is air pollution even a concern for authorities? We take stock with environment analysts on the other side. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Now, air pollution in the Delhi-NCR region continues to remain in the hazardous category. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal chaired a high-level meeting yesterday. The government will implement the odd-even policy from the 13th of November till the 20th of November next week. The state government has also announced a work-from-home policy for 50% of the government staff until further notice. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court fumed at the deteriorating air quality conditions in the capital, ordering Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh to stop crop burning immediately. Air quality in large parts of Mumbai city remained poor as well. My colleagues Danish Anand and Rachna Dhanrajani get us this ground report.
Well, today is the 5th day in a row when we are seeing that the air quality in Delhi is in an alarming situation. However, in comparison to yesterday, we are seeing that the visibility has improved, but still the air is quite toxic. There are certain weather stations across Delhi that are reporting the air quality in the very poor category. Till yesterday, in several weather stations are reporting the air quality in the severe category. But somehow the situation has slightly improved, all thanks to a little wind pressure that we are witnessing since early morning.
Mumbai is currently grappling with worst air quality ever recorded, with several areas like Chembur, Worli, Mazgaon recording an AQI of about 300, which denotes hazardous level of air quality. Now, this comes a day after the Bombay High Court imposed a ban on transportation of construction debris from one place to another, and has further instructed that if construction materials are being moved from one place to another, they should be in covered trucks or in mixer plates. This is an attempt to curb the release of pollutants in the air.
Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Anumita Roy Chaudhary, Executive Director at the Centre for Science and Environment, and Vimlendu Jha, environmentalist. Thank you so much for joining us. Ms. Roy Chaudhary, let me come to you. I'll just quickly take you through some dates. 31st of October, 10th October, 1st of August, 24th July, 3rd July, 8th May. These are dates that the very same case, the MC Mehta case, was heard previously by the Apex Court. In fact, in this year alone, the case has been heard 13 times, 14 times if you count today's hearing. While the Supreme Court is quick to seek accountability from the various states, in which it rightly should, the question that I'm asking you is, even as an oversight mechanism, was the Supreme Court slightly behind the curve? We've seen this problem year after year. Every year, the Supreme Court has passed extensive orders for very many years. Could the Supreme Court perhaps have kept a closer eye? This language on having lost patience, bulldozer will be initiated. This language perhaps should have come a little sooner?
I truly understand the anguish, that was expressed and the frustration, because clearly every year we are going through this air emergency. And this is the time of the year when we are reminded that how things are just not improving. Now, the question for us is, and that's something where we need to focus on, that are we really getting the scale and the speed of action right? And that's where we are slipping. because it's the winter only reminds you, and winter is the time when the pollution is only getting trapped, but the pollution levels are already very high, not only because of the episodic problem of the crop burning in Punjab and Haryana, but also the continuous emissions coming from our vehicles, industry, power plants, waste burning. And therefore the question is, where is the round-the-year action to address this more fundamentally at the infrastructure and the system level, and not only wake up during winter with an emergency action? Emergency action is only a way of preventing further loading of pollution when the pollution is already trapped because there is no wind in the city to blow it away, and reduce exposure and illness. But that's not the solution to the problem. Now, a lot of things have also happened, but what we know that even though on year basis, the PM 2.5 curve is not going up any further, we have stabilized the problem and bent the pollution curve. But even after that, we still require 60% reduction in the annual average level of particulate matter to meet the clean air standards. Now, unless we are able to see deep emission cut in all the local sources as well as the regional sources, and then stop the episodic problem, only then we will be able to deal with it. So our question is that where is the monitoring system for the state governments to report that how have they planned the scale of the strategy needed to meet the sectoral targets to cut emissions from vehicles, industry, power plant, and where is the gap in the current action and between the target? Unless that is demystified, we will never understand what's an adequate action to be able to address the problem. And that has to come out much more sharply and adequately now in the forefront. Today, when you're talking about Parali, yes, it's contributing about 25%, up to 25% of the problem at this moment in Delhi. But what about the rest of the 75% of the problem that we have yet to address? And we know in Delhi, particularly today, vehicles have emerged as the top contributor to pollution. Now, even though we have done quite a bit about phasing out old vehicles, bringing CNG in, but now we have to deal with the sheer number of vehicles on the road, which is undercutting all the technology improvement that has happened so far. So the agenda has to be zero emission. Now the problem is just not about incremental improvement in our pollution control, but to fundamentally address it and eliminate it at the source of the problem.
Right. Vimlendu, let me come to you. These conversations, we've only grown too familiar with these conversations around whether it's the odd even, whether it's crop burning. This time as well, today, in fact, we have very specific pointed orders that even crop burning needs to stop immediately. The chief secretaries will be held accountable. These are all words that we've heard before. What's different this time? Are you confident that there will be some change at least this time?
See, Ashmeet, first of all, it's governance or air quality governance is not the responsibility of the courts of our country. We are very lucky that at least they're the courts of the country that actually pulls up and talks about this, because the governments have completely gone missing, be it the central government, respective state governments, or our municipalities. So ideally, in an ideal democracy, in an ideal system of governance, courts have no business to get into our systems of governance or our basic understanding of governance in that sense. Right now, I'm not very, very hopeful just because Supreme Court has used strong words. It's been a couple of hours and still, farm fires are on. At the end of the day, I do not think the micromanagement of air policy or micromanagement of air governance can be done by the courts. It has to be the respective governments and the executive that is responsible for everything. What Anumita said rightly, that, it's very, very convenient for us to really hide behind stubble burning each year. Conveniently, of course, also for Aam Aadmi Party right now to really not hide behind stubble burning, because for many years they said that was the main source, and right now they're saying it's not. And reality is that, yes, on any given day, from 0% to 25 to 35% is what the contribution of stubble burning could ideally be. But the other perennial sources of pollution remain through the year, and there's very little, very reactive approach that we have towards pollution management, both at the local level, regional level, and national level, because we only wake up during the pollution festival when pollution is visible, and otherwise we're completely missing. So it's extremely unfortunate. And also linking air pollution to the impact that it actually has on human health, both in terms of mortality, morbidity, comorbidity, performance, many of those things is completely, ideally, it's the government is the custodian of our air and our health, and it's not to be found. We do not know where our government is. We don't even know where the Environment Minister of India is, because he's been busy electioneering. Similarly, the chief ministers of other states as well. So it's not it is a political issue. I'm not trying to.
I'll just have to come in there. Sure. Mr. Jha, I'll just have to come in there. Ms. Roy Chaudhary, let me take up the issue. One issue that, of course, has been discussed extensively has been that of crop burning. Justice Call today even observed that he was driving through Punjab, saw farm fires on either side of the road that he was driving on. The solution that has come by way of Punjab is that, look, there's a scheme that will come out, 2,000 crore rupees is the total bill. We'll foot 25%. Delhi government needs to put in 25. 50% needs to be taken upon by the centre. They've also made suggestions that perhaps paddy itself should be phased out. There should be an alternative crop such as millets. The government is backing millets. These are some of the suggestions. The question I then want to ask you is, at the execution level, there are multiple stakeholders. Do you have concerns with respect to implementation between these multiple stakeholders?
Absolutely. And, you're very right. So, solutions today are all known. There is nothing that we do not know what to do about the problem. And it has been pretty well defined. Policies have been laid out. Even funding support, both at the central and the state level, has also been worked out. And if you really track the change on ground, yes, more machines have arrived on ground today in both the states for the farmers to use it to mulch the straw instead of burning it. In addition to that, there are now policies also to increase and improve industrial use of the straw so that you can create a market for the straw and an economic incentive for the farmers not to burn it. It's all there. The question here is on the scale of the implementation and whether we have been able to eliminate the problem. And that's where many hits and misses when we are looking at the implementation strategy. Now, the biggest challenge here is how to ensure that each and every farmer, and particularly the small and the medium farmer and the poor farmer, they have access and affordable access. They cannot afford to spend a lot of money to rent those machines. So you really have to find your own method of reaching out to them and see that there is a roster and they have the access to the machine on time to use it, given the fact there's a very small window to change their crop. Now that's the huge challenge of dealing with millions of farmers across. That's the first challenge. Second is that the ex situ solution, which is also taking off. So now the biomass-based power plants and the industrial use of the straw as fuel has also increased, which now means straw has an economic value. The farmers can sell the straw instead of burning it. But again, to make it foolproof and ensure that farmers don't burn it and access the market, you need to see that there is extensive transportation and storage mechanism for the straw. Now, unless that infrastructure level preparedness is there, then even though solutions exist, you will not be able to make it happen. And yes, the final answer is also going to come from reducing the acreage under paddy and taking away the minimum support price for the paddy and bringing the other mixed crops, the locally appropriate crops, and see that change. But now we have to see that acreage has not really come down to that extent. And therefore, what else do you do? And also in terms of introducing new variety of rice, the short rotation rice, etc. So solutions are out there. But the
these are all valid suggestions. Right, Ms. Roy Chaudhary. I'll just have to come in there for want of time. These are, of course, very important suggestions that the Apex Court will consider, that has been considered by various stakeholders. But the key message that the Apex Court is sending out is that we've run out of patience. We need emergency action and we need it now. A meeting has been called tomorrow. The Supreme Court will resume hearing in this case on Friday, and that's perhaps when we'll begin to get more clarity. Ms. Roy Chaudhary, Mr. Jha, thank you so much for joining us, for being a part of this. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news and updates will continue on the other side.